welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Alex.
And I'm Lee.
Yes, and today we're reviewing the debut self-titled album from Queens of the Stone Age, and what will be our first in reviewing all of their discography, as every 2 weeks I think we're going to switch it up with Regina Spektor, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, we can do that.
yeah. Despite it having a good reputation, as many as their other albums, I don't know why, but I hadn't heard this one before we decided to do this discography review, and I have no idea why. Like, everyone loves this album, or a lot of people, fans of the band, do. I don't know why I was putting it off, but you, Lee, you had heard this a long time ago, right?
Yeah, many years ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago, I listened to this album, and I don't quite remember if I liked it immediately, but I remember that the first album that I listened to was Songs for the Deaf, as I would imagine many people first get into when they listen to Queens of the Stone Age, and I loved that.
Yeah, same for me.
Yeah, and yeah, Queens of the Stone Age's self-titled album. I don't think it was something that I liked immediately, but it certainly grew on me, and it continued to grow on me for weeks and weeks. I think, if I don't remember wrongly, and yeah, it just came to be one of my favorite albums because there's something very challenging about this album, but there's also something that is so punchy, and it just resonates with me at a whole other level, really, compared to so much rock music. So yeah.
Yeah, the I think they were trying to find their sound on this one, and I think they actually found it like really early on. Like, some of this is still a bit rough, and some reminds me of Caius, which is Josh Homme's band before Queens of Stone
Yep.
Age, and some of this does sound a lot different from a lot of other Queens of Stone Age, with Josh Homme being like the main. I think the only guy from this lineup still in the band. I think Nick Olivieri was in the band at this point, and he
Yeah,
sticked
and
around for a few years. But
Alfredo Hernandez as well, the drummer, was, I think he also was the drummer of Caius, or maybe I'm wrong, but he was at least one of the few drummers in Palm Springs Desert, where Joshua Homme basically grew up. So he played for for basically all
yeah,
of the bands there. But yeah, he's on this album. Um, Maybe we should just get into the first track, Regular John. This
yeah,
song steps right into this driving guitar riff, and there's a lot of songs here with a very driving guitar riff. It's
hmm
the guitars are very conformed in a way, but they also provide something very unique. Like, after this driving guitar, you immediately get this discordant melody. It kind of reminds me of the buzzing sound of a mosquito. That might be a bit weird to say, but that is just the first thing that comes to my mind. And Josh performs the vocals in a very gentle and laid back way. And later on the songs on this album, his vocals become more powerful and a bit more confident sounding. And I think that's because it was still very new to being a vocalist at this point, because, this was the first album that I think he did maybe one or two songs on Kai's previous one of their previous albums, but that was really it. And this one was the first one
yeah,
where he was mainly providing the vocals throughout the whole album. So yeah.
yeah. Regular John. I like that this is like strongly discernible. Like, the stereo mix goes into both different earbuds, which is how I listen to music in stereo rather than mono. But a lot of mixes you wouldn't actually know. But this actually feels like there's like um, instruments that goes in one ear and out the other. Like the mosquito you were saying earlier. I can kind of get what you mean with that. I find Josh Homme's voice quite odd because of how light and chilled it is in a way. Like, he is not that heavy of a vocalist on a lot of this album. It's almost like dainty, but the actual instruments are so odd, and it's odd to me how melodic and heavy this can be at the same time. But yeah, that's a really good opening. I really like the open up your eyes, open up your room part. I mean, that's a real hook. That was stuck in my head for days on end after this.
Mm.
After listening to this.
Yeah, I don't really know what the lyrics are all about. Maybe It's a loving,
Yeah,
it's some type of relationship that he was in. I'm not sure, but I don't really appreciate Queens of the Stone Age that much for their lyrics. I mean, it's hooky and catchy in a way, but I don't really like to look too deep into it. And I also have a feeling that his lyrics are very, uh, I don't know, vague in a way. Maybe they're more abstract compared to other people who write lyrics who are more concrete in their way of,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, what other tracks did you like from this album? Do you find any of the tracks that like stand out more than others?
Well, there are three songs that have some of the most heavy guitar solos I've ever heard on an album that is not metal,
Let
because
me
this
guess.
isn't metal,
Let me
but
guess which one. Okay, so
okay, okay.
maybe it's the what is it called? The sixth track, the Bronze.
Um, I don't think on that one.
Okay, but just
Which
go ahead.
um, I'm thinking more walking on the sidewalks, Mexicola, and you can't quick me, baby.
Yeah,
I don't know. They have certain guitar solo passages that are so heavy and loud and really cool, and it is some of the loudest I've ever heard in a non-metal album, because this is like stoner rock, I believe, something like
yeah,
that.
stoner rock, desert
Yeah.
rock. They have some subgenres that are, you know, they're subgenres. So
If Only, I think, is the most well-known song from the album. I think that's the only song I'd heard from here before. I don't know. It's really good. I love the like 1, 2, 3, 4 punch of guitar, then drums, then really great bass playing. I believe Nick is the bass player for the band. I'm not entirely sure what instrument he
uh,
plays. Is it bass?
uh,
I'm saying that Nick Olivieri on If Only,
oh, if
is he playing
only.
the bass on most of this album?
Well, when I bought the actual CD, there was a picture of him at the back of the album, so I guess that means that at least he played on some of the songs, or maybe he played on the whole album. I'm not sure. But
Yeah,
yeah, he's a great bassist actually. But then again, Josh Homme is also famous for switching different instruments. Sometimes I mean, he plays um, drums for Eagles of Death Metal as well, so it wouldn't surprise me if he actually played some bass and drums here and there.
but yeah, If Only is a really good choice for a chorus, because this song's a little less muddy than some of the other ones on here.
Mm.
Like there's a lot of
Yeah,
lo-fi production on here. Maybe it's just because it's like garage rock in its early days for them, but it's probably the best song on here just because it's the easiest to understand and most tangible. Really catchy, and I swear there's either, maybe you can tell me since you've heard it way more than me, but do you think there's like little keyboard licks on If Only? I
yeah.
kind of caught that towards the
You can
end.
hear that during the intro when there's one instrument coming in at the time. First there's a guitar, then drums, and then the bass, and then there's some keys at the end. So I think there's keys at least during the verse. I'm not sure in the chorus or the part afterwards during the solos, but at least in the verse there's some keys. Um, but yeah, they're not that easy to hear during the song. Um, and I also think that what is it very easy to notice is that Josh is having much more of a freer and more prominent vocal performance here. He sounds a lot more powerful,
Yeah,
especially during the choruses, and I think that is what makes this song so catchy and so tangible because it has this very stark contrast between the very low hanging more subtle verses, and then you have these choruses where it's like if only. Whereas I'm not gonna sing the song for you guys, but
yeah,
but it's basically a very powerful chorus, and yeah, I love this song. There's a lot of authenticity just bleeding out throughout this whole song. Another song that I found to be quite interesting here that actually I didn't like it to begin with, but it steadily grew on me when I first listened to this album was You Would Know, the fifth one.
right, yeah,
Um, this is definitely one of the more psychedelic songs that this album offers, I think. The guitar melody sends out this quirky, discordant vibe, which again you will also find throughout the whole album.
yeah.
Um, But you also have these oddball filters on the drums and also on Josh's vocals at certain points, which makes the track even more authentic, I feel. And you also quickly notice the shortness of the on the two first choruses. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's basically you would know, and that's it. It's like 4 seconds, and that's the chorus. I mean, can you mention any other
Wow.
rock song, hard rock song, where there's a 4 or 5 second chorus? No, right?
Maybe some like thrash metal, but that doesn't really have choruses like
Yeah.
this. So yeah, it's really odd that I don't think there's actually many genres that have a chorus that short, like
I don't even
usually. So yeah, it's very odd.
I don't even know if it's correct to call it a chorus, but that is the part of the song that really grabs me every time I listen to it, you know? So maybe it's a chorus. If it is a chorus, it's very, very out there.
Yeah, that sounds quite experimental in general because they like try and incorporate like a phone dial-up tone at the beginning,
Mm.
and I've heard people try and use phone dial-ups a lot of the time. Sometimes it can sound like a dumb, gimmicky sound effect, but I think it's okay. And when the guitars try and mimic the phone in the first verse, that's quite cool. And the thing with this song is it's a bit odd how there's like stop and start timing to the guitar riffs that make it slightly jarring and experimental. But I think Josh's vocals tie everything together here nicely.
Mm.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
like that song
definitely.
as well. I think actually I'd like it a lot more with more listens. I can see why you didn't like it so much when you first heard it.
Mm. Yeah, it's very, very edgy in a way. Quite more out on the experimental side compared to many of the other songs here. But there are some quite experimental songs here as well, other than that one. For example, Hispanic
Yeah,
Impressions, if
yeah.
you remember that one.
That's like a throwaway instrumental, except it's actually still quite good. It's just like it's a pretty decent riff, although the bass sounds like a strong snap in the background, like he's like pulling all the strings and then pushing it back. I don't know. There was a lot of I
What?
don't know. I don't think that's how he's whoever's playing it, but I don't know. That's kind of what I heard with the bass playing there. But I think it shows how good the band are without Josh's vocals. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
song. It's yeah.
It has this. Yeah, it's quite an oddity on the album. It features this off-putting time signature. You can hear that there's a very heavy emphasis on rhythm on the song. All the instruments are very synchronized, creating this very hard-hitting and also exotic atmosphere. Um, Honestly, I don't know where they got the inspiration to create the song from because it's so different. It's out of this world. Josh's menacing and weird ass guitar solos. They're just it's like you have to ask yourself what the fuck is this, but at the same time it's so good, you know. So yeah. And there are other songs you want to mention
another
or like yeah.
another odd song is the last song. I was a teenage hand model. Because I wasn't expecting a song like this. You know, it's the piano sounds so far away, but his vocals sound so nearby. I don't know how he achieved that. Maybe the
I think
microphone's
maybe
like
he
behind his head. I don't know.
actually,
Um,
it's very interesting that you mentioned that because David Bowie did something similar on his album Low, when he was singing on one of the tracks on there. I think he basically just moved the
uh
microphone away from the piano and just recorded from a distance, really. But yeah, this is also a
I
very
think that's what's done here.
yeah. This is a very unexpected song. I really didn't write that much about this song, but I can probably talk a little bit about it just from what I remember from it. It is the only song on the album that features piano as a prominent instrument, and there's also all
Yeah,
these sound clips in the background. There's some
yeah,
water
very
being
odd.
tapped. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember exactly what it is, but there's a lot of things going on here. Um, I just love the melody of the chorus though. It's so soothing and very nice and chill and mellow compared to everything else that you hear on here. Except for the last part of the song, of course, where there's like super
Oh
noisy
man.
stuff going on.
I mean, this is like technically the most accessible Queens of the Stone Age song I've ever heard, and I didn't expect that on their first album.
Yeah, it's
But that's up until the end of it, which is like a amateur joke, like bleeps and bloops, and like they're playing over like a sound recorded phone call of one of the band members, and I don't know, I think I might edit it out when I get the CD, like out of my digital version, because I don't know, it doesn't ruin the song, but I don't get why they added it, other than just to have a bit of a laugh, I guess.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, there are plenty of songs on here I like. You Can't Quit Me, Baby. Oh, it's so cool. There's so much great guitar playing, guitar solos on this. And I don't know, there's like a really awesome, swaggery, badass, swanky guitar riff and bass the whole at the beginning of this, and oh, the groove they lock into is it's not even. It, most of this album are riffs, but this is a proper groove they lock into that they play away at, and man, it's so awesome. I don't know what else to say. It's just the shredding is thunderous, and it's like guitar rock heaven.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of guitar
Yeah,
playfulness
you,
at the
you talk
end.
about You Can't Quit Me, Baby?
Yeah, yeah, that song is awesome.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, it really reminds me a lot of their second album, Rated R, actually. It
Wow.
feels a bit like it's more deeper and more mature compared to some of the other tracks on this album. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because it's more slow paced. But yeah, it certainly shares similarities to songs that they released some years later. I don't know if you've heard Autopilot or In the Fade from Rated R.
I've not heard Rated R yet. That will be the last Queens of Stone Age album that has been released that I've not heard because I hadn't heard the first two before we decided to do this.
Okay.
So it's a bit odd that because most people listen to the first album last for some reason. I've seen that people like go backwards, like they go forward from Songs for the Deaf, then listen to Rated R and then the first album. But
Mm.
yeah, I'm looking forward to Rated R, especially since people think it's one of their best ones.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Guess it's the second most accessible album, but I don't know. I have
Yeah.
quite an open filter for all of their albums, really, so I can't really say. I mean, it is one of their better albums. I actually think their first three albums were the better ones. So yeah. Do you want to mention some other songs, some other things about the album that we haven't mentioned, maybe, or?
Yeah, I like pretty much every song on here. I mean, Hispanic Impressions was the least enjoyable, but still quite interesting and experimental song. So every other song I like more. Walking on the Sidewalks introduces a bit more of a slower, impactful guitar crunch, because this really is a guitar crunch. There's so much satisfying guitar feedback that I really love. I mean, the sound of this album, the riffs are so catchy, and the way Josh sings is not heavy. It's almost like ear candy some points, his vocals. Like he sings in quite a soothing way, and it's really odd at some
Mm.
points, like as the first track in particular. Um, I don't know. This is like music I can zone out, rock my head back and forth, and just rock out to. I mean, I think this is what it's partly intended for at this point. I can imagine people in a live context just jamming out to this stuff, have their eyes closed, head back and forth, that sort of thing. Because that's
Mm.
what I was doing to a lot of this. It was just brought me in such a great headspace of rock music.
So what would you rate? Oh, maybe I should just mention what I think about the album first. But yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
quickly wrap this up so that it doesn't get too long. I basically love
Hmm.
all of the songs here. I don't have anything negative to say about any of them. This album just it is a bit rougher compared to their later albums. But I guess that is a song. I guess that is a tone and a sound that I like. about it. It sounds very. It has that stoner rock, uh, desert rock feel that Joshua Homme first found when he was playing with Caius, I guess. He brought that on,
Yeah.
and he made it softer because of his voice. He made his music very sweet and tender in a way, but at the same time, it's so robotic, it's so discordant and heavy, and it's really the best of both worlds in my view. There's a catchiness, but there's also this challenging thing to this album. I think they just hit the sweet spot between having something that is really challenging and something that instantly hits you as something unique
Hmm.
and yeah, easy to like. But yeah,
It's very easy to like.
yeah. So what would you rate this album, Alex?
Yes, I love the question. um,
Good old question, huh?
it's well, I'll need to get Placid Burrito Ed to ask it because he hadn't for our reviews together. So the question has to live on. It's the key to the success of the channel.
It's the key to
Yeah.
the question of life, really, when you think about it. Like, what would you rate it, Alex? Reminds me of that movie, like Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy, and then they ask this big computer, "What's the meaning of life?" And it's like 42. Yeah, but yeah, what would you
Yeah.
rate it, Alex?
I'm gonna give this 8.5 out of 10, and that might get higher with more listens because yeah, some of it's a little bit rough, and not some songs are a little bit weaker. I mean, I do enjoy the song "Give the Mule What He Wants," but it is a little bit weaker than especially the two songs that surround it, "You Can't Quit Me Baby" and "I Was a Teenage Hand Model." And yes, the sound effects at the end of the last song, a little bit annoying, but honestly, I think there's so much of the Queens of the Stone Age in place that we love already. It's just a little bit more rough and raw, but I think there's so many great guitar solos on here. I think I've heard all of their albums apart from Rated R and Villains at this point. Well, no one's heard Villains, but this has the best guitar solos I've heard from them so far, and that's saying a lot. So yeah, 8.5 out of 10. I really loved it. Great debut album.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of giving this album an 8, or initially I was thinking a 9 because it's just it's one of the most influential albums that really just got me into rock music in the first place. But then again, I'm not
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, maybe I'll just give it an 8 out of 5. But it's a very very strong 8.5 from me. A few songs that I find to be a bit skippable after listening to it for years and years. But then again, that in itself speaks for itself that I've been listening to this for years and years from time to time. But yeah, give the mule what he wants. One of the songs that I didn't like that much. Some of the songs were a bit edgy and rough, as you said, Alex. And yeah, I guess that is the reason why I'm not giving it a full 9 or 10. But nonetheless, very definitional album that I think is it's very influential. I think to many bands. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. So yeah, we'll keep going with Queens of the Stone Age. We'll review Rated R next and go through them all up until their newest album, Villains, which is getting released later this year. So yeah, thanks for joining me, Lee, and um, thanks for listening to Busted Speakers, guys. If you tell us what you think about Queens of the Stone Age. Tell us what you think about us starting up discography reviews. Check us out on social media. Check out some of our other videos. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Bye.
bye.